I want you to get together.
And what, just as an outsider, like what exactly does being a member of the cult give members? What do they get out of it that keeps them in exactly, or is it fear based? What's going on here
It's
exactly?
it's half and half. So first of all, you are told by the time you're very little that if you ever are an apostate of the church, like you're going to hell. So like you definitely don't want to stray from the teachings, especially if you made it to the higher level. Like my husband, he got out when he was like 17, but that was okay for him because then his parents say things like, well, he doesn't have the full knowledge. Well, he doesn't know. He doesn't have what I have. Where he made a mistake one day and told them, oh, she went to the temple before and that is like the worst thing that could have ever happened to me because now they're like, what? Like she left and she knows. And oh my gosh, it's this whole big thing. So, like, they're nice because Mormons are the nicest people you'll ever meet. And the stuff that I'm going to tell you that is Masonic. They don't either know, they don't study, or until you get to the higher levels, just like Masonry, there is truths revealed at a different level, or they keep it hidden. And they were very effective at this when it was before the internet. But then the internet came. And I was old enough that the internet wasn't a thing when I was young. And so I watched this metamorphosis. It was really weird because they would get on and say, like, doubt your doubts, don't doubt your faith. This is like one of their slogans. They come up with all these little slogans and then they're like, don't look up other websites. If you have a question, go to your bishop and da da da. That's kind of like a priest, right? He's like the local guy. And so you're not going to go to your bishop with that. Like, what? That's crazy. He's going to get mad and you might get excommunicated. Then everyone knows. I mean, you could get in trouble. Still, everyone knows because when you get in trouble, you can't take the sacrament and you're sitting in sacrament meeting and they're pushing the little tray and you're like, no, no, thank you. And everybody sees it. Everybody that's there at church that day, they're like, oh, she didn't take, I wonder what she's up to. I wonder what she did last week, you know?
Hmm.
And so it's like shame. I knew one thing when I was young. They ask you very personal questions about your morality before you can go to a church dance or go do baptisms for the dead, which we'll get into because it's a lot. All these weird things, but you have to be morally clean. So they ask you, like, do you masturbate? Do you make out with people? This is an old man and a young girl in a room by themselves. Like, you you're just in there and you can't just be like, well, yeah, that happened once or something. No, they want the details. They want what you're thinking about. They want every little thing they're writing in their little book, you know, and you're like, oh my gosh. Like, so by the second time you figure out that you're perfect, you don't do anything wrong ever, because even if you do, you're just going to lie because this is so uncomfortable, you know. And this is why Mormons build up this weird facade of like being perfect. Like all the moms are perfect, like all the wives are Stepfordy wives, like all this stuff, like their houses are always clean, this and that. But they also believe in not grace. They do, but they don't. They believe that if I on earth need $1 to get to heaven, I better do everything I can with works and serving and everything and all the time to get like 75 cents, and then Jesus will pitch in a quarter for me. That's how it works for the Mormons. So they're very effective at getting people motivated because, and no wonder they have a lot of money and most of the church members are overachievers. I definitely was. Like, I got out of school, I got married at 17. Um, I had 3 kids, going to college, working full time, like, and I still did all that. And I still got my registered nurse. I still, like, there was no sleeping. Like, my house was still clean. Uh, my kids still looked perfect on Sunday. You know, their hair was all perfect. Like, you do all the things, but it makes you a little bit crazy. I'm not going to
Hmm.
lie to you. Like, I was super high strung. I was super whacked out on caffeine too. Like, because Mormons can drink caffeine, they just can't drink coffee or tea or
Okay. Okay.
alcoholic
Okay.
beverages. Yes, it's
Yeah.
very specific. And it
That.
used to be hot drinks, but they manufacture hot cocoa in their own, like, they have like a welfare program where they give out food at like a store and they manufacture hot cocoa. They encourage hot cocoa. Hot cocoa has a ton of caffeine in it. They own stocks in some of the biggest pharmaceutical companies, Tesla, like all these big things, and also And I don't know if it's still current. They used to own a big portion of Coca-Cola. So they are huge on energy drinks. Those are not off. They just find a way around it, right? There's like a joke, like, how do you tell a good Mormon from a bad Mormon? By the temperature of the caffeine they drink. So if I drink hot coffee, I'm in trouble. But
I see. I
it's
see.
just that. Yeah. And these are called the words of wisdom. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I
So,
mean, to try and keep up a facade of perfection as though your works and being perfect is in some way going to save you is just that's not Christian, not even a little bit.
no.
Christ said, on the cross, it is done, and that means it's done. It doesn't mean another prophet's going to turn up, I don't know, 2,000 years, 1,100 years, I don't know how long it was, later and say, oh, no, there's a new rule we have to start doing now. What Jesus did, it wasn't enough. You also have to
Yeah.
do X, Y, and Z, and I'm baffled of how this has happened, how this religion has even become a thing, especially in America, which is supposed to be the most Christian country on the earth. How is this I don't what is
So
it?
widespread.
What is it?
Yeah.
You need to explain this to me. So
Well,
give me
I
give
think
me a
that
presentation. Let's go into this. Let's explain what is going on. Okay, go ahead. I'm leaving it to you because I'm baffled
if
here.
you see a Mormon, you think of a good person. They also stand for really good family values. And you also see all these people with your shit together, like literally. So you see these people that are like, they're really successful because God's blessing them and they're doing really well and they're really fertile and all these things. And so, like, you see this picture of these beautiful people, and most of them are. I'm going to tell you when we get into this crazy stuff that I'm going to show you, it isn't something that I knew, right? This isn't something I knew when I was in, because I would never have researched that because they told me not to.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't have found these truths. I would have said, even if I did and I read that book and knew all this stuff, I would have said, oh, that's not true. Because even if I knew it wasn't true, it wasn't true.
Hmm.
That's not, or was true, it wasn't true, because I had my testimony and the way I feel and the burning in my bosom. And what does the whole Bible talk about? Like, don't trust your feelings, don't trust your dreams, don't trust this, don't trust that. Because of these things, because we're so easily manipulated as human beings. I mean,
Hmm.
if the news doesn't tell people this, I don't know what does. And then with it being such a widespread interaction through Masonry and Jesuits and like all this weird stuff, it's so, I mean, the United States, people think it was for democracy or religious freedom. No, no. The United States was formed on Masons, Masonic practices, Masons running away to do Masony things
Hmm.
in another place, leave them alone. And if you have any questions of what I'm saying, then look up Washington, D.C. and do a little bit of research about what you're seeing there, because there's a lot of symbolism. And same thing with every Capitol building in America, and same thing with a lot of stuff. So I feel like it was kind of an acceptable form of worship alongside Masonry, which is so widespread and they all know. So, like, you can find old handshakes between the church president, Thomas S. Monson, and President Bush. And they're doing the secret handshake. And you're not supposed to do the secret handshake unless you're in the temple if you're a Mormon. Now, Masons can, but Mormons can't. We're not supposed to do that. And so, they use it to their advantage to rise above and become relevant. But also, there's no arguing with a dead person. It's just like my grandma. The only reason why Joseph Smith made his teaching so far spread is because he died. He was martyred. And so, personally, I think he was killed by the Masons because he let women in, and you don't let women become Masons. Just ask a Mason. They have their own little thing they do, but they don't do their thing. And so I think that got him killed because he was bringing women to the same level and doing the same Masonic rites as men. And that's not acceptable back then, especially. So I think that the reason why it does so well is because it's totally socially acceptable. These are good people. These are nice people. These are, good, upstanding young men going out on their missions and knocking on your door with their very short haircuts, and they look very nice. And, all these things, they come to you preaching Jesus, but Jesus is not the Jesus that we know. Also, Jesus looks like Matthew McConaughey with the long beachy hair. Like he's blonde and he's very white and delightsome, which is a Mormon joke because many prophets talk about becoming white and delightsome, even the Native Americans. And they were very racist and it's a whole big thing. But I don't know how they survived that either. Like that should have done them in. That should have killed it off. Like, nope, it didn't. And they still have Black people go and be Mormons today. And I'm always like, what are you doing? Like, I'm not even any person of color but my niece is, and I certainly wouldn't want her to be one, you know, like I'm just like, oh, this is not okay. Like, look back. Like they literally said you could come to heaven too, but as their servant. Like, so yucky, you know, and it's just not Christ's teaching. Like it's none of that is anything to do with Christ. But they're wealthy and they get connections. And if you're Mormon, like you're more socially acceptable, like especially if you own a business, especially if you're a secret Mason underneath, you know, and you because they don't have a rule against it. Mormons can be Masons, they don't care. So then we are anyway. It's almost exactly the same. So some of the stuff I'll get into with teachings, you'll see that it's so identical. And I just think he made a religion out of it. And I definitely think he saw some things. I definitely think he saw some fallen angels. And I'll get into that because I truly believe it. And when I show you some weird stuff that I found just searching around, you know, I was like, oh, this is wild. The book, it's D. Michael Quinn wrote the book that I was trying to think of, and I'll remember the title, it'll come to me. But D. Michael Quinn, if you put in his name, it will come right up about the magic stuff and folk magic of the church. And he was petitioned by the church to do this.
I want you to get together